Right, I'd like to talk to you about my latest book. It might shock some of you, quite a few of you, but I didn't write it with the intention of shocking anybody. It's just putting something on the table that I believe to be true. And it's funny because it came at me in spades. I couldn't write fast enough. I couldn't get it down, document it fast enough. Certainly, higher power had a lot of help here. Now, it wasn't channeled. I don't go for channeling anyway. A lot of it, most of it, seems pretty fake to me. But there is a phenomenon. See, channeling is where it's somebody else and you try and pretend that this other person is somebody important or a medieval monk or something, and therefore it must be true. Now, it's my voice and it's me, but certainly some what I call downloads from above. Well, what am I raving about? I'm talking about a book called New God, New World. Yes, I've tackled the whole subject of creating a new God, a new divinity, something more modern for this time. The scriptural stuff, the biblical stuff and all that, it goes back thousands of years. It's not relevant. It was written by people living in the desert who were violent and they'd got no technology. They didn't know anything about phones, computers, jet planes, motor cars. They probably didn't even have toilet paper, and yet they're supposed to govern our lives and everything they said is true and wise. I don't buy it because a lot of what they're talking about in these stories, you take the Bible, for example, it's full of some terrible stories of cruelty and violence, not by people, cruelty and violence by God, wiping out the newborns of Egypt just to let the Jews escape. I mean, if that's what it means to be a chosen people, I don't want anything to do with it. The Sodom and Gomorrah story is often told and retold, wiping out this sin city. Now, I live in Vegas. It's a modern sin city, but I don't expect it to get wiped out anytime soon. And the point is, there are innocent men, women and children living here. Why do you want to go and get so angry and vengeful and actually stupid that you want to go and wipe out a city because it isn't doing quite what you said? I'm sorry, I just don't buy that stuff. We need something more modern and certainly more kind and compassionate. But I think you can agree that the whole idea of a new God, a God reinvented that doesn't have all the weaknesses of the old God, shall we say, is certainly going to change the world. I mean, the world is in a tremendous state of division and conflict. We seem to be heading for hell in a handbasket. Well, of course, I don't believe in hell any more than I believe in heaven. But it's going wrong. And a lot of that has to do with religious differences. If you think about, my God's better than your God. It's this God, it's that God, it's this spiritual canon. These people are unworthy. God is with us, therefore we can kill them. It's been 2,000 or more years of garbage activity that's really amounted to nothing. I'd like to wipe the slate clean and start again. Now, why me? Well, why not me? Somebody has to do it. Well, I believe it has to be done. Yes, that's true. I say it again. It has to be done. Somebody has to do it. So why not me? I can communicate well. I share my ideas and a lot of people find they respond. But of course, I've got this special role as a doctor as well. Now, a doctor is about fixing and healing things. And if the world needs anything now, it needs fixing and healing. And PDQ, which is an old Raj Indian expression for pretty damn quick. Something needs to be done. We can't afford to go on as we are doing. So we need to take a fresh view. And that's really what my book, New God, New World, is all about. It's a given, isn't it, that if we create some kind of new God with a new vision and a new meaning, that the world, it's got to be a new world. You can't go on with the same old paradigm. It just isn't working. Somebody told me I should write this book, about 15 years ago. It was shortly after, believe it or not, as well as an MD, and with quite a few. I've got 4 degrees and I've been professor at 2 minor universities. I'm also an ordained minister in a minor church in California. And around about that time when I was ordained, somebody would say, you should write this book because there are a lot of people who have lost faith. They just don't believe the old biblical stories anymore. Most of it is too much to take. I mean, if you look in the Bible, there's incest, violence, betrayal, adultery, murder. What? This is supposed to be scriptures. And I mean, take for example, Lot and his wife got wiped out. She was turned to a pillar of salt. But earlier, God had said, just give your daughters to, these soldiers, mercenaries. They're clearly got murder and rape on their minds. Give them your daughters so that they leave the men alone. I mean, what kind of awful divine advice is that? But it's even more complicated because the daughters of Lot got drunk and screwed their father. They wanted to have children by their own father to protect his line. Well, I'm sorry, I could go on for hours about these weaknesses. I'm just saying we don't need this kind of horribleness in our spiritual lives. What we need is love and beauty and true things. And I start with a very simple premise with this book, which is suppose consciousness came first. The materialist, reductionist scientists said, no, that can't happen. That's not true. You have to have a brain to be conscious. Or a computer, maybe a robot or a computer, but you really need a brain. That's absolutely psychopathological science tripe. Baloney. They've got no evidence, not a single shred of data or any evidence of any kind that says consciousness could not have arisen on its own. They just say so. And they're stuck in this materialist paradigm, as you know. We're just brains, it's all material. The whole world unfolds and everything that happens just happens by random chance. And the random chance good bits get reinforced and persist, and the random chance bad things just drop away. Oh, I mean, what kind of baloney is that? But anyway, that's their view. Everything is material. Some of them even believe that they've disproved the existence of God. They're trying to say that there's no place for God in a material, physical world like this. We know nature, we understand it, which is absolutely not true. They don't understand anything. They don't understand electricity, where it comes from. They don't understand gravity, or where it comes from. And yet they say, we know everything, and therefore we've got the whole structure. The Big Bang. Everything in science and every single test or experiment has disproved the Big Bang for the last 60, 70 years. Everything has proved it's wrong. And yet they still stick with it as if it was true, and this is how the universe works. And so, the latest is the James Webb telescope that's gone out there into space and photographed, not speculated or pondered, maybe photographed things that prove the Big Bang theory isn't true. But they still won't let it go. Anyway, that's just a little bit of a rant about the physical scientists. They believe they've proved that the God has no part in the natural order of things. Actually, science, true, honest science, has proved the opposite. It's proved that whatever's going on in this universe, in the cosmos, and there are other dimensions and other realities, whether you want to call them all part of the cosmos or just say other universes. But strictly speaking, of course, a universe means only one. Uni. So it means all and everything, all in one. So it's up to you whether you include different realities and different kind of rules and laws of physics and so on in the cosmos or the universe. But the point is, the way it works, the way it's understood to work. Take quantum science. It means the mind is always in there somehow. Consciousness is part of the quantum universe. You've heard of the double slit experiment, where electrons can decide what they're going to do, whether they're going this way or that way, or produce this effect or that effect. They make up their mind according to what happens to one of the nearby electrons. It's a very fascinating experiment, which orthodox and reductionist scientists say, oh yes, very interesting, isn't it? But you will never hear them say, of course, that disproves everything we've thought of, that consciousness and mind is part of reality. It's part of the way the universe works. There's a beautiful quote, you may come across it, it's a book in the 1930s by Sir James Hopwood Jeans, Jeans, like the jeans you wear on your hips. And James Jeans wrote a beautiful quote. He said that the cosmos, listen, I'm going to paraphrase it because I don't have it by heart, but you can look it up. But something like, the cosmos, the world that we're beginning to see is unfolding not so much like a gigantic machine just clanking away. It's beginning to look more and more like a great thought. Wow, that consciousness, instead of being just an impassive observer of what's going on, is actually an active participant and maybe even the creator of what we're seeing. So you see, there's a lot of scientists got there long ago, actually, long before this modern bunch of reductionists. And they understood that they were uncovering something about conscious. One of them, I've forgotten his name, but anyway, he's a professor of physics in Arizona. Paul Davis, his name is Paul Davis, wrote a book called The Mind of God. Because people did begin to think, they were starting to understand the in-depth nature of consciousness. Where do we come from? And, as I said, my initial proposition, I should say, I call it my proposition of being, number one, which is that suppose consciousness came first. As I said, they try and tell you it can't, but that's rubbish. Of course it could. Now, this is the important point. If that proposition is correct, if the starting place is correct, then everything else follows by logic, not by speculation. You don't even need science to measure it. For example, if consciousness came first, it means the whole of physical, material reality is within consciousness, not the other way round, as they're trying to claim. Our minds are not in the universe. The universe is in our minds. We created it and put it there. And you can follow this logic and gradually unfold it. Therefore, consciousness is present in all aspects of the physical universe. Therefore, it's a living universe. Therefore, the universe is conscious. We're living in a conscious, living universe. And you can keep going through layers and layers as to what it really means if consciousness came first. One of the important things it means, of course, is that we're all in it together. I call it primal consciousness. If you could call it God, and then it gets to be a bit like a biblical story. God was there and invented the universe. Yes, but then, it became this cranky old fart in the sky that's busybodying and trying to poke everybody around. I prefer to think of consciousness as a natural, beauteous expression of being, of which we're all participants. Some of us live in grander experiences of it, and others, maybe just small details and so on, but that we're all, all one. I mean, the sort of hairy fairy crowd, the New Age, they've been saying this for years, but so have the Indian gurus and, experts, Sufis, really deep consciousness people. They've all been trying to say the same thing in one way or another, which is that we all came from the same place and we're all part of the expressions of the same thing. It's not us down here, poor suckers, and up there is this wonderful, perfect God. He's not separate from us. He can't be logically. If consciousness came first and was the fullest expression of being, then we're all conscious, we're all part of that initial creativity, and we've got to get on board and take this into consideration. Now, what it really means is that we've probably got formidable creative powers, but of course we don't. We've lost them. I've done a whole chapter in this book on why and how we would have lost our powers if we were part of an infinite God presence. How or why did we surrender our powers? And we did. But it's not difficult to understand why. And when you read that section, you think, yeah, okay, that makes a lot of sense. But as I say, we're all part of this great oneness. And I prefer to use the term primal consciousness. I'm not trying to get on anybody's feet. For a long time, I was shy about using the word God because it's very contentious. But I'm okay with that now. I'll use the word and just say it means whatever you want it to mean. But I've got a wonderfully different, new kind of God to share with you, and I think you'll love it. In fact, if you're an intelligent, loving, caring person, I'm sure you'll love it. Even if you say, well, that's great, Dr. Keith, but I'm sticking with this one. I don't mind. If you really want to do that, if you want to go with the old outmoded, worn, cranky stories that lead to war and violence and sexual molestation and abuses and paedophilia, you can go that way if you want, right? But I've brought on board this wonderful new God. I love this new God already. And of course he loves it. I mean, listen, he's always been there. It's not new in that sense. It's just a new look. Whatever it is, whoever's right, if this is a new God, it's been there forever. It's always been there. It's just that somebody like me started to pull apart the bricks and look behind and think, yeah, what's behind this wall? You know, let's. And the revelation has been pretty sensational, to be honest. Anyway, a lot to talk about, and probably lots and lots of, well, there will be lots and lots of videos and discussions to come. Get yourself a copy of the book. There's a link here with the video. And also, of course, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. That way we can keep you updated. And you can share in all the new creativity that's going on around this phenomenon. And it'd be wonderful to have you on board. But whatever happens, God bless. Lots of love. Take care.